think that if you prepare against what they're most known for, it'll probably have the best results.
Yeah, and that's another thing with FlyQuest is I've even heard them say that they aren't going to be doing those weird picks and that they over-practice some of those things. But we're obviously in a champion select. What do we see here? We got Graves, Malzahar banned by CLG, Camille Shen banned by FlyQuest, so a lot of Darshan bans. That's been pretty common for FlyQuest throughout the split.
I like that a lot because, like I was saying, you know, CLG really does well with this split push style. One thing that I think CLG does more than any other team is they're extremely confident just saying, all right, Darshan, just go. You know, don't even worry about the TP. Like, we'll just 4v5 them and try to stop Baron or try to stop their siege. And CLG does this a lot. And they can pull it off a lot too. You know, they're confident in Darshan's ability to split push. He's confident in his team's ability to defend. So by getting rid of these champs that are really good at split pushing, I think that it takes that away from them.
Yeah, I see a last ban Nautilus as well up against Balls. That's something I almost never see. Smoothie as a support player, there's also a Lulu available.
Yeah, I think Lulu is extremely high priority. Yeah, there it is.
Lemon loves Lulu. I've played up with this guy for years, and I don't know how many arguments we had about Lulu support. I would say Lemon play Thresh, Lulu is not good, and he would still play Lulu. So
Lulu's
I know
good now though, so
she is good now. She is good now. So Lemon's probably happy about that. I think he's a great Lulu player, so should be good for FlyQuest.
I think Lulu's a really, really strong pick because she kind of counters a lot of these assassins that coming out in the jungle and top lane these days. So, and she's really good at protecting your carries too. So she's just really good, solid champ overall right now.
Yeah, we got the Xmithie Rengar. That hasn't been good for a lot of this year.
I feel like Rengar is, I don't think he's a bad champion, but I think he's very overrated. I see him get first picked in so many games. And, you know, I think Rengar has his place. I think he can be very good, but I don't think he's good in all situations. So I think that, you know, we'll probably see the priority drop. Smoothie, forget what I'm talking about next time I'm playing.
No, you're not. Meteos and Smoothie, we have no team affiliations here.
Right,
absolutely none.
Cloud9. I want to touch in a little bit on this because we obviously have a lot of these conversations when we're on the caster desk. Oh, you know, a top laner, we got the Fizz versus Rumble matchup. That's going to go one way. But from like a macro perspective, or how this is even going to be influencing your decisions you're making in game, how do you start seeing these team compositions fit together, Smoothie?
Right now, I see. Like, since I have Lulu, I expect them to have like a really strong mid ADC, like really hard hyper carries. And for CLG side, I expect pretty aggressive, like maybe Zyra or something for support, or just maybe not assassin, maybe like a mage mid laner, because Lulu deals really well with assassins.
So one of the things that sticks out to me about FlyQuest comp is they're very, very light on hard CC. Generally, jungle support and top lane are the roles where you're going to get the most hard CC. You know, like that's where you get your Nautilus, that's where you get your Thresh, and FlyQuest has a lot of champs together that just really don't have that. So I would like to see them pick a mid and AD carry that brings some of that CC, maybe a Varus or something along those lines. You can win games without hard CC, but I feel like it just makes it a lot easier to have, especially with Rumble. You know, there's some champs that just benefit so much from enemies not being able to move. Yeah,
and even tying it back into FlyQuest from earlier when they like to play so fast, when you're going to be doing that, having CC is one of the most important things. Another thing that I'm curious about is the LeBlanc and whether we're going to see it here, because
it's
that
available.
LeBlanc is available. It's unbanned.
Interesting.
Neither team has picked their mid laner. CLG loves playing 1-3-1. That seems kind of right up their alley.
I am really
especially against a low CC team right now. Like that last pick LeBlanc could totally come in for CLG.
I would really like to see High take LeBlanc here.
You want to see
High is a great LeBlanc player. It would bring some of that CC that their team really needs. She's a super good playmaker. I don't actually know why she's not picked yet.
It's really confusing. I think that LeBlanc right now is like one of the strongest mid laner, if not the sole strongest mid laner. So I think it's really weird that none of them are picking right now.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because LeBlanc was presumed dead about a month ago. And like, Gunblade. And
so Orianna Ezreal. So, that is a team with
so I was expecting
0 hard CC.
Yeah. I love seeing the Orianna with the Lulu because I feel like that synergy is insane. But you usually see that with something like a Caitlyn. With an Ezreal, it changes it a little bit. As you mentioned, almost no hard CC. They're going to have to be pretty clever with the way they find the fights.
So what this says to me is they're trying to play this like kind of poke kite comp sort of deal because they do have that. You know, Ezreal does give you that great win condition of just in the late game, his Qs are hitting you for 500 on a 0-second cooldown.
Yep.
So I think that's great. But, you know, as far as forcing fights, like I know FlyQuest wants to do, if you jump at them with this comp, you're probably not going to have a good time. So I'm not in love with FlyQuest's draft. I'm not in love with it. I think that CLG's draft is a little bit more well-rounded. They do have that Aurelion Sol like I was talking about, so...
Yeah. But even the CLG composition, when I look at it, doesn't have a huge amount of hard CC, so might be a very kind of rotation fill.
Well, they've got enough. You know, like when the team fight starts, you're going to get AShe, you're going to get Nami ulted, Rengar, Aurelion Sol, even Fizz ult. So they've got a lot more than FlyQuest, because if you look at the amount of ways you can lock someone down, it's kind of Whimsy and Orianna's ult, and that's it, which is pretty limited.
Pretty limited. So Smoothie, when you're looking at these team compositions, if you were piloting one of these from a theoretical chess match shot calling game, which one would you rather have? Which one has more tools?
I think that, like from a champion perspective, I like FlyQuest a lot. They have a lot of strong champs. Rumble, Lulu, and Orianna are 3 really strong champs that work really well together. And even though they don't have a lot of CC, they have a lot of priority in lane, so they can always move around the jungler a lot. They can, like in fights, they just kite back, and it's really, really easy to fight because CLG's comp has to kind of dive into them. Like, but it also depends on how they fight too. If CLG gets a flank or something on the backline, it'll be really catastrophic for the backline for sure.
See these new graphics? They're super fancy.
T-Tours.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. We're in space. Anyway, just for you guys watching this stream, the way this is going to work is we are Fog of War stream right now. So we are going to be watching blue side. Scout's on it right now. We're going to be going into our observer machines and making sure we're only seeing Fog of War from blue. Smoothie,
stop
switch
cheating.
it over on your side. Okay, I'll show you how to do it. You got to click that button. Nope, a little bit below it. And then go to blue. Yes. So now we can only see blue side. Our observers are on top of this as well.
I'm no observer.
All right. You guys at home are in for a treat. I think that this will probably be one of the more interesting ways to watch an LCS game, because when you see it with all the vision, a lot of things that teams do don't really make sense, but when you only see their vision, I think it'll make a lot more sense to see what they're trying to go for, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah, and we did a few Fog of War streams during Worlds. I've actually never done this before, so I've always thought it would be super interesting to observe a game from Fog of War. I do it a little bit when I'm, spectating a friend or something, but never here. So very start of the game, defensive line opening. What they just saw, it looked like they saw Xmithie up in the top side.
Yeah.
So AShe and Nami in the bottom. What does this tell you then as FlyQuest? Because that's who we're casting this from the perspective of.
Well, I think it's not going to be a lane swap. We haven't seen that in
2 years.
What, a couple years.
It feels like
so
that. It's been 6 months since lane swaps.
The thing that actually stands out the most to me about this start is that Kha'Zix is starting with Machete. Because right now in the jungle, starting race, especially on champs like Rengar and Kha'Zix, who can do them quite easily. Sorry, Raptors. I'm living in the past. And you need Talisman for that, because you put that healing thing on everyone and you just get a lot of health back. But because Moon's starting Machete, it means that he's probably not doing that, because it's hard to start that with Machete. So if CLG saw that he started Machete, they can probably guess that he's not doing the most common jungle clear.
And then I guess the question would be, does Moon now have to account for that? Because he would know that they saw him. So what would his defensive mechanisms be? Because he starts blue, he's going Gromp. Generally that path, he would have seen that ward just get placed over the wall as well. So he's been scouted out with the cleared blue.
Right, so CLG, he knows that CLG has full vision on what he's trying to do. So when you're against Rengar, he's a very strong early game jungler, and there's basically 2 routes that you'll see Rengars do. There's either the Raptors red, and then you do your Krugs and Recall, which kind of takes away a counter jungling possibility by not letting your Krugs get taken. Or what you can do is Raptors red, Wolves get level 3, and then you invade. So Moon, I like what he's doing. He's sitting in the bush here, so he'll see Rengar if he comes from the invade. And now he looks like he's going to be moving into the jungle, which...
Yeah, and Smoothie, the bottom lane has some jungle party. You just said this is smart. What's he doing here?
Right now, so Moon knows that bot and mid are... Oh, he's looking for a gank mid, actually.
Yep. Huhi's been pushed up and is out of wards.
Wait, this might actually kill him.
No, he's dead.
It might actually kill him, yeah.
They don't have a lot of CC. I think Huhi might be able to get away, but...
Maybe burn flash.
He's going to have to burn at least one. Yeah, there you go.
So a lot of people would ask right there, why didn't Moon run through the river? Because then he'd be able to cut off the flash.
Well, I think that generally, if you're ganking someone and they take a really odd escape route, it might be because their jungler's there. And Rengar's a jungler that you do not want to face check.
And he hasn't been spotted.
If you walk into a Rengar and let him jump on you, you're going to get behind. So now what I'm thinking is, look at the jungle LCS. It's 3 to 17. Granted, it's not that big of a discrepancy because, you know, some of the camps have so many minions, but Moon is probably going to have to do some farming to catch up.
He's actually ahead level right now.
He's ahead in levels.
Yeah, you get these little snippets of information. So when you see he's at 17 CS and you look at his inventory after he just showed, that means he started on the red side of the jungle. So he would have done the Raptors red buff Krug's recall route.
Right, so that tells Moon that, yeah, you know, Xmithie did that route, and his Raptors will be respawning at about, you know, 4:20 or 4:30. So that's a pretty critical time for junglers who start Raptors because it's an opportunity to either invade that, which honestly is something that Moon might go for. If he does his Krugs, well, he's going to be kind of late now if he wants to recall and go for it, so it probably won't happen. But what a lot of junglers will do is they'll recall around 4 minutes, get 2 longswords, and then just invade the Raptors. And this would actually be good for Moon to do because he didn't start Raptor of his own. So there's only going to be 1 camp spawning at that time. So basically both junglers are going to want it. So we're going to see how Moon decides to react to this. He knows that Rengar's going to want to do his Raptors on the re-clear. So he will have that info to go off. And high warded the Raptors, which is good. So I think they did spot Rengar there.
Yeah, it looks like FlyQuest is doing a really good job of tracking Xmithie so far, which is kind of allowing them to play up in lanes. Smoothie, if you're in this situation, kind of how is the communication working right here as you're tracking the jungle? We just heard kind of Meteos talk about everything the jungler is thinking about, but that's not something every laner can be thinking about. So how is the information being relayed for FlyQuest to actually use this?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the bot lane's playing really well right now. FlyQuest's bot lane has really a lot of pressure on CLG's bot lane, so they're allowed to move into the jungle and get wards on the Gromp like they had earlier to see Xmithie. And Huhi too. He had priority mid, so he walked up and warded the Raptors. So I think like any information on the jungler, it takes so much pressure off the laners. Because they saw Xmithie topside, their bot lane can play aggressively. Oh, there's a fight here actually.
Dude, you going aggressive? Oh, Huhi.
Really?
There's Huhi with that Aurelion Sol roam.
There it is. Yep.
And get your drinking cups ready. If anyone saw Lemmonnation's tweet, he's actually advising people to play the drinking game where you drink each time he dies. So
now, why you would advise that before a playoff game is a little questionable.
He's embraced it, man.
He's embraced it.
Some people just like feeding.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
So that was pretty bad from FlyQuest to die like that.
Well, not many people play against Aurelion Sol. We'd mentioned they had all this pressure. They probably felt pretty confident because they had deep vision of the jungler and were thinking we have Xmithie track, but essentially they forgot about the mid laner.
Right, that's pretty big though, because Aurelion Sol, his play pattern, like, he's not really a scaling champion. He's not bad in team fights, but his advantage, the reason you pick him, is his insane roaming early game. And that's just something you got to watch out for. You know, Huhi should always be on top of trying to track where he is, and they should get some defensive control words up.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and they got punished.
And we see some ward stats right here. One thing I noticed is these wards per game stats look high, but what is that? Wards killed per game is very low for FlyQuest. So as far as like a vision control team, they actually rank pretty low in a lot of different categories. Is that something that could bite them? Do you feel like that's going to change in this game against Huhi's Aurelion Sol because they need more wards? Smoothie, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's pretty deceptive. Honestly, I think FlyQuest is the type of team, again, like Meteos said, they just kind of make really, really unorthodox plays sometimes, and they kind of just like sometimes ignore vision and just do it. So I think that doesn't really matter too much, but yeah, the stats are definitely not so good for FlyQuest.
One thing that I would have really liked to see FlyQuest do, and they're basically losing their window for it, they force Aurelion Sol's flash very early, and they do have a top and bot lane that can push in. So basically what they could look for is you push one of your side lanes, you have either the support or you have Rumble come with Kha'Zix and you 3-man mid and you just kill him. But like I was saying earlier during the draft, having that total lack of hard CC, it just makes situations that could be kills just turn into not kills because you can just kind of walk away. So I think that is kind of biting them. And especially if you fall behind in the comp like this, it's going to be really hard to win unless CLG throws. Yeah,
for sure. These champs that FlyQuest have a really strong laning phase, but they don't really have any comeback tools that they get behind. So they have to play really, really well to snowball the game.
That's interesting as well because we mentioned how Aurelion Sol isn't necessarily a late game champion either. So I liked how you transitioned to kind of what they're doing next. Here it comes again though.
Altec with a good flash in the bubble. And he's gathering.
Really good gank by Huhi there.
Yeah, and this is something that we didn't necessarily see coming. We should probably, we're doing a lot of conversation, focus in on how we can track this Aurelion Sol because we're seeing that it's kind of coming out of nowhere. What the heck do High and Moon and Altec and Lemon have to do to stop that from being such a surprise each time? Because that's 2 kills now.
Well, I do like what FlyQuest did with their control wards. They have defensive ones, but somehow Aurelion did find a gap to get down there. It looks like he probably just went down the river.
You can see the ping they just put in the river.
Yeah, so that was a great gank by Huhi. FlyQuest definitely didn't expect it, but I think they really need that bottom pixel bush below mid warded. That will give him a ton of control, and it's super hard for Aurelion Sol to slip by if you have that one. So they've got their defensive line, which is good if you're behind, but not good if you want to see an Aurelion Sol come through the river.
For sure. If you have Aurelion Sol, you really need the advantage. If they had the pixel ward, like High placed right now, I think.
Yeah, he just went to get it, but it's immediately being pushed out by Aphromoo.
He did get the control ward killed, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. If Aurelion Sol doesn't get these roams, he would have lost a wave for free, and he would get pretty behind off that. But it's making the roams work, and that's doing really well for CLG.
Yeah, and it's so tricky, right? Because that, as you mentioned, that pixel brush is the route he's been using to get those ganks off. High just moved up, placed a ward, he placed a trinket. You can't buy normal wards anymore. What does he do now? Right? The vision's gone. Does the bot lane just have to play back this whole time? Do they have to just kind of take it for a little while?
Well, ideally, your support has a Sightstone at this point in the game, but Lemon did opt to go for the Frostfang before completing his Sightstone, which is a bit of a more aggressive route, but when you're behind and under pressure from an Aurelion Sol, I can't say that I support the decision, because now they just don't have the vision that they need.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're ahead, Frostfang's really good, because it gets you a lot of gold in the late game, but yeah, if you're behind, you definitely need vision, especially versus a roaming champ like Aurelion Sol.
So now FlyQuest is feeling really pressured. They've got all their vision cleared out. That pink behind your red is kind of like your last beacon of vision you can easily control, and they lost that. So their bot lane's going to be very pressured.
Well, roam from balls here.
Yeah, Huhi's going towards the side he has so many wards on.
Oh, he blew his flash. Wow.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah, well,
Definitely was weird.
What I saw is Balls came in with the equalizer, which was going to force the flash anyway, but Huhi did burn it a little earlier.
Right.
That's a loss of pressure too, because that's now both FlyQuest ultimates down.
Forcing Aurelion Sol's flash is good though, so that was definitely not a bad play. It was a good run by Balls. Good. I like that.
So you saw earlier that FlyQuest bot lane had all pressure in the lane, but now they have to be really respectful of Rengar ganks and Ashe arrows, especially onto Lemon. As Lulu, you have a really, really strong post 6. Your trading is really ridiculous in early game, but post 6 with Ashe arrow and Nami follow up, it's really, really easy to kill. I
actually think that Balls is going to be under the most pressure here for a while, because against a Fizz with Ignite and a Rengar as Rumble, you don't really have any way of starting Fizzes.
Rengo.
Mid lane.
Oh dear.
Thank you, Xmithie.
All right, so things are going a little dark right here.
Not great.
For FlyQuest. We didn't even talk about before the series who we think is going to win right here, but I think Smoothie and I had a slight favor to CLG.
Right.
I wanted FlyQuest.
I was kind of hoping for FlyQuest to win. You know, they're my old teammates, they're my friends, but you know, this game they're not playing great. One thing that I did think coming into this is the draft is going to play a huge part, and it really feels to me like they're just being punished for their picks. You know, they're not really doing a whole lot here.
Yeah, we watched the start of the game, and we saw that they had priority in 3 lanes, essentially, as far as being able to kind of push up, with an argument to be made for Huhi's Aurelion Sol. But then as soon as he started getting the roams down, the vision kind of fell apart for FlyQuest. And this is something I feel like everyone wants to know, and I don't think we're going to be able to give a satisfactory answer. What do you do when you're down 3,500 gold 12 minutes into the game with no vision control?
Well, generally what you want to do when you're behind is, you know, the enemy team, when they're ahead, they're going to want to set up vision, and then they're going to want to take objectives. So if you can catch them setting up vision, you can look for picks. But what I keep coming back to, I feel like I'm going to repeat this the entire game, is just this lack of CC on FlyQuest team.
Yeah.
It makes it so hard to do anything. You can't win fights when you're ahead. You can't win fights when you're behind. It kind of just, it's a super fragile draft that they did. You know, you took champions that have slight lane advantages that are pretty easy to kill.
Oh dear. Lemon. And he's gone.
Probably gone here again.
Yeah, it's really hard now with Aurelion Sol with the mid turret gone. They're allowed to get vision control on any side of the jungle, and it looks like they want the bot side and take this red probably.
Right, I don't even think they're going to be able to hold their turret. This is probably the first turret going down here, so
yeah.
It looks like High is moving towards the top side, which is pretty much all you can do. You know, if they're taking the bot turret, let's try to get something top side, but Fizz pushed in the wave. Very hard champion to kill. So High's probably just going to have to settle for maybe,
Yeah.
you know, checking for some control wards, but that's not really worth a turret.
And poor Altec here, sitting at a second-tier turret trying to fire True Shot barrages at red buff while everything else is dying. Let's try and kind of refocus into, can we find an opportunity for FlyQuest to get back in this? Because we kind of know what they want to do, but I mean, let's just even try through the little snippets of knowledge they're gaining through the minimap, if there's anything they'd be able to pull off.
Well, so, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, saying like, I was just gonna say like, this is really good what they're doing right now. They're giving it the bot side because they know that CLG want Dragon, and they'll probably get one good bot turret next because they have wards all on the bot side. So they're going top instead and trying to force down turret, look for a trade.
Yeah, they just saw a couple people recalling in Fog of War, so they shouldn't be able to make it here in time. And they're hoping Darshan would have stuck around, but...
This was actually a good play.
Yeah.
I think that CLG probably could have taken the bot turret earlier if they wanted to, but they chose not to. FlyQuest had a good read, or maybe it wasn't a read and they just felt pressured, but they did actually get a turret trade out of it.
And now 4 people show on the minimap as well. So do you continue this push as FlyQuest because you just saw 4?
There's no way you're going to get the tier 2 turret. The best thing you can do here is just take vision in the top jungle, and like Moon's doing, take whatever camps are available. So, you know, this was a fine play for FlyQuest. They're not really falling more behind, but it's mostly just a trade, which is good to do when you're behind.
Yeah, it's going to be even trade with turrets and a Dragon for the CLG, but they can't really do much about it. They're behind, so they have to play a bit more passively.
It was only a Cloud too, so
yeah,
of any Dragon to give up, that's probably the least punishing one.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to tangent. I still think Cloud Drake is good. I want to hear why you don't like it.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's not useless by any means, but it isn't as good as 8% AD and AB.
Yeah, and it's not worth giving up a turret or anything by any means.
I kind of feel like every Dragon except Cloud gives you some kind of like massive edge in the game. So Mountain makes it so you have crazy Baron pressure. Infernal makes you just super strong.
It just,
and then
it's the
Ocean
generic
gives you
one. It's always
really good
going to be
sustains, which is huge in poke games.
For sure.
Cloud is just kind of like, I run faster, which I think it's relevant in games where there's a lot of like skill shot catch champs, you know, Elise, Thresh, LeBlanc, that kind of stuff, because it makes it easier to hit when you're faster and easier to dodge when you're faster. So for that kind of stuff, it's valuable, but I just think it's not as good as the other drags.
Yeah, because I look at it in a bit of a different sense, right? I see a lot of mid laners end up winning more with move speed quins because you're able to walk up to the person and actually get the trade when you want it, and if they walk up to you, they can't get the trade. Cloud Drake gives 25 flat move speed, which is the equivalent of 3 to 4 move speed quins if you could actually put them in. It's a huge amount of move speed out of combat, obviously, but just being able to get those trades, I think, is a super underappreciated thing. But I absolutely recognize what you're saying, where it doesn't have that same level of power as the other 3. But personally, I actually always want the Cloud Drake.
Okay, so something that I didn't even touch on and didn't even realize fully till now is FlyQuest doesn't actually have a front line whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, like, I really think this draft was a disaster from FlyQuest. Wow.
Uh-oh, here comes
Sol.
It looks like Kha'Zix is trying to go into tank build too, which
trying to be frontline.
Bye.
This is getting rough. Sorry,
this game would have been a lot nicer to watch from CLG's perspective. This is kind of just FlyQuest.
Well, I think it's good as well to know kind of what happens when you're getting starved out of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
They almost never see Huhi on these roams until it's too late.
Huhi's doing a great job roaming, and FlyQuest just isn't. Seems like they're either not aware or not respecting what Aurelion Sol can do. So it looks like they're setting up for a bot turret, and I do like this. This is something that I feel like FlyQuest would go for that other teams won't go for. Like, how often are you going to see an Orianna give up the mid wave to just sit in the bush bot?
A player come here. Yeah, he's coming in.
This is going to be spicy.
For sure. They're getting flanked from all over. It's going to be really hard. But this is good for the comp though. Fly wants to kite back, but nope.
We have a different definition of good. Actually, it's not been that bad.
Their comp wants to kite back.
That actually.
I definitely hear what you're saying, because this fight is going way better than you would have expected for a 5,000 gold deficit. They had 5 people there, and we're cutting back. I mean, they're down 5,000 or 6,000 gold, so it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 4-for-1, so obviously very bad.
Oh, yeah.
But
real bad.
Compared to...
Here we go. 5-1.
It was one of their better opportunities.
Yeah.
I respect them for going for it, but at some point, you just can't win.
Yeah, because I kind of saw that as a mirror of the play they made in the top side, where a play was made on the other side of the map by CLG. So FlyQuest then said, let's move to the bottom side, but they don't necessarily have the vision. They haven't been able to cover their flank wards because they don't have the time for setup, and CLG ended up collapsing down with the teleport and pretty much everything else.
Right. It was kind of weird because it seemed like FlyQuest was the the ones who wanted that play, you know, having the Orianna camp the bush, but CLG's TP came in first.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's just really hard. I think all this stems off from losing mid turret. It's really, really hard to verse Aurelion Sol if they can constantly push you under turret and always move anywhere on the map and get vision control everywhere. So I think it's just really, really hard to play against this comp because if they can get control in the jungle, they can always have flank wards, and that's exactly what Fizz wants to do. That's what Rengar wants to do too.
So I think the most sensitive timing for FlyQuest at this point is going to be that 20-minute mark where you can type /FF. That's pretty much looking the best. You know, save the morale. Let's go next, boys. Lulu getting the blue.
Okay, so
I respect it.
So from a shot calling perspective, then, oh dear.
And he's gone.
Yeah, and once again, that was just
he didn't
no
give
vision
blue.
on where he's
That's
at.
true.
He did not give the blue.
Lemonnation.
No. All right, that's tight.
Slick.
The 20-minute FF timing, as far as working towards that power spike.
Okay, so on a more real note,
a little bit of a serious question, right? From a morale perspective, we almost never see it in pro games. People surrendered, a couple years ago, and then the community just destroys them for it and say you should try and win every game.
Yeah, I don't think you should surrender because it is an LCS match. In a scrim, this game would have been done a long time ago. This would have been open mid, go next at 5 minutes. But LCS game, you try to play it out. There's no real advantage to surrendering except, like you said, maybe morale. So, obviously Baron's coming up. CLG is going to start controlling Baron, and we're just going to see what FlyQuest does to react to it. I don't know what they can do. Maybe look for some poke. Maybe try to bait CLG into a really terrible engage where you can get like a sick rumble equalizer in the jungle, but going to be tough.
Yeah, I would imagine CLG right now want to take Dragon, and after Dragon walk up towards Baron side and start getting control.
And you're kind of predicting what COD is going to be able to do based on just your knowledge of the game right here. I'm kind of curious as well. We saw this game fall apart in a lot of ways for FlyQuest, but so much of that was just Huhi appearing out of Fog of War and killing you.
Yeah.
But what I kind of noticed in this game was it's not just, oh man, Huhi's always finding those roams. The instant FlyQuest went to control the areas of vision they needed to stop the Aurelion Sol roams, COG was there to fight them. So is this kind of what people talk about when they're worried about Huhi's Aurelion Sol? Is just like CLG with Aurelion Sol, or is it more than that?
It's a tough question. I'm not in the head of CLG. I think Huhi, it's probably one of his better champions. He's going to perform on Aurelion Sol better than most other mids would do on Sol, and better than he would do on other champions. So it's a combination that if you're going to give him the champ, you should be ready for it. And it seemed like FlyQuest just weren't.
And there aren't many champions that have Sol's specific playstyle, where he just roams after pushing every wave. Yeah. And no matter what, like if you get an advantage, you can snowball that really easily. If you don't, you kind of stagnate later on in the game and stop scaling. But yeah, Huhi plays it really well, and people don't really know how to deal with it because no one really plays Sol except for him. So I think that's a really big positive for Huhi.
So at this point, FlyQuest is just trying to get as much gold as they can. Hope they get some kind of scaling going, and they're really just relying on CLG to make a mistake at this point. CLG will be setting up for Baron soon. One thing to note is that only really Zion has armor on CLG, so as far as starting Baron and tanking it, Rengar's not going to be great at. Ooh, big fight.
Or they die. Yeah, and that's where FlyQuest was spread out. And I was going to get into this question, even though it doesn't seem like there's much opportunity. You've played with Huhi. He's one of the weirder shot callers that everyone always talks about. Is Metal Gear Solid roams, trying to go do crazy things. What do you do here, right? So many times when I'm looking at player comms towards end of games and your team is losing, it is fairly silent. So what are even the things you're talking about as far as communication and information exchange at these stages of the game, as they're just getting face checked on?
All you can really do at this point is try to time ults, try to time flashes, and look for some window where the enemy team is maybe getting greedy or something like that. But this is just a disaster for FlyQuest. This is
really hard to play, even if
this is
getting dove by Aurelion Sol under T3. So right now the CLG is probably gonna go for Baron, and after Baron.
And then Altec gets the 1v5 Baron steal Penta. If Altec doesn't get this, he's letting his team down.
I was joking earlier, if you really wanted Baron snowballs to happen, if you get a Baron steal, which would be calculated in some way like you do 10% of the Baron's damage but still get it, it just does 10,000 true damage in a large area around it. So you would get the Baron steal pentakills. to really turn the game around.
Yeah, as a jungler, I'd love that.
You
dude.
love that.
Feels good, man.
Probably the worst idea. This game is 17-1. So in a way, I'm glad that we got to do this as our shot calling stream, because a lot of times you just can't shot call your way out of these situations.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think
it's
the
pretty
biggest thing
hard.
this game illustrates is the point I keep coming back to. When you don't have lockdown in your team, unless you can just clean snowball pound every single lane, you're just not going to win. You know, it's something that since probably the beginning of my time in pro play, I've always stressed teams on. I'm like, please don't put me in a comp where we just can't win if things start going bad, which is what this comp is.
Right.
AShe on Lemon. Get your glasses ready, folks.
Here we go. Oh!
That was really good.
He's landing good shockwaves, but it doesn't matter.
They're way too strong. It's going to be really hard.
Behind.
What do you think of the new AD carry builds that have been happening with the Blade of the Ruin King rush? We've seen it on Ezreal as well, you know, tier to Blade of the Ruin King instead of going for, you know, an earlier Trinity Force or an
I like it a lot because I think it's very comparable to other builds for damage, but it gives you a lot of flexibility with what you want to build. You know, it gives you life steal, which is great for sustain, and it's kind of sort of a standalone item. It gives you AD, it gives you attack speed, and just it pretty much does it all. You know, it's a great item.
Yeah, from a bot lane perspective, I think that I like this build a lot because when I play with Ezreal, especially versus like AShe and sustain lanes and poke lanes, there's a lot of like Karma and Lulu in the meta which have really strong poke, and lifesteal helps a lot in those kind of lanes.
Oh dear. 7 deaths, Meteos.
Wow.
For Lemon. Wow, the word for it.
The Magi's on Darshan. I like it.
Well, to be fair, I feel like Magi's must have one of the highest thrown game rates of all time, of any item in the game.
Oh my god.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
What?
so as this game races towards its conclusion, I want to ask Smoothie here because we just both kind of remarked, Meteos and I, 7 deaths for Lemonnation.
Yeah.
Is it his fault? Because the support oftentimes has to be first line in trying to get vision back. So really, is this more CLG crushing Lemon, or is it Lemon being in the wrong spot?
I think it's more CLG crushing, honestly.
I blame Lemon for his first death. His first death to the Aurelion Sol gank was extremely avoidable. He got hit by a bubble and didn't flash. So it basically turned what should have been Huhi wasting time into Huhi getting a kill and just snowballing that bot lane entirely. So I don't think Lemon played great. But that being said, they didn't have a front line to face check. They were behind. They were against an insane amount of catch, you know, Rengar, Fizz, everything. So it is a situation where Lemon's probably going to be dying a lot. But in that being said, I don't think he had a good game.
No, I mean, 22 kills to 1 in 25 minutes.
Yikes.
Shot call.
Yeah.
Just shot call your way out of that.
It's too hard there.
It's a lot more than shot calling that just happened. We are going to do like a little bit of a recap from a vision control perspective or from a strategy perspective. You don't like the team composition. Smoothie, also not a huge fan of the team composition.
It's like individually they have really good champions, but I think I agree with like no CC point. They can't really like ever come back if they get behind. They kind of have to snowball the lanes, and if they don't get a big lead that way, it's really hard to come back.
Yeah, and so essentially we're saying that the game fell apart as soon as Aurelion Sol got his first roam, second roam, when they lost vision control in the river.
Right, I think that, okay, so FlyQuest actually had a pretty solid early game. They had vision on Rengar for pretty much the whole early game.
Yep.
Tracking the jungler is great. They forced Aurelion Sol's flash in a situation where you have pushing side lanes, so I think they should have been able to punish him. But, you know, just that one lapse, letting Aurelion Sol get that roam bot and turning it into a kill, just completely, like, flip things around, and FlyQuest just couldn't come back.
Yeah, I know when I played as well, if you get smashed like this, it's difficult to kind of identify the area that happens. Is it more FlyQuest now saying, okay, we messed up this, we're totally fine? How much of it, how much can you actually learn in this game against CLG as trying to adapt to the next one? Smoothie, what would you be saying if you're FlyQuest in the huddle?
I mean, I'd probably be bringing up the no CC part first of all.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like, again, unless you win all your lanes, it's really hard to do anything. But the game wasn't like fully based off that. Again, what Meteos said, they have 2 pushing side lanes. They can always roam mid after Aurelion Sol burn flash, and they could get the vision they wanted to, but they just didn't do it, and Sol got the roams off.
Right. Well, one thing that does happen in games like this is sometimes when you get smashed that hard, it stops. It like untilts you basically. Like if you lose a really close game, you know, you get frustrated. It's like, oh, we could have won that. But I don't think at any point FlyQuest said, oh, we could have won this game because they just got smashed so hard. That was almost a kill per minute or a death per minute for one team is insane. So I think you just forget about this game. One thing that I know High does, we did this a lot on Cloud9, is when you go into the next game of series, you say, all right, guys, forget what we've played so far. You know, if we're up 2-0, just go into it as 0-0. If we're down 0-2, just go in 0-0. So try to go with a fresh mind. I think that all these players on FlyQuest are veterans for the most part. They should be able to handle a loss pretty easily. And I think they just need to draft better. You know, I think FlyQuest has had just problems drafting pretty much this whole second half of the split. And it didn't seem to get fixed this game.
Yeah, does that tilt you going into game 2? Being able to figure out a better draft? They got the first pick Lulu. They banned... The Nautilus got banned from balls. What's his top lane CC? There's a lot of questions they're going to have to answer. We'll get to that. We're going to be taking a quick break, about 5 minutes. Be back with Game 2. We're going to be watching it from CLG's perspective on Game 2, so we'll see you then.